budget, no pay. That's a new bill a bipartisan group of lawmakers is trying to push through the House. The premise, hold lawmakers to a simple work ethic. If you don't get the budget passed each October, then you don't get your salary. Joining me now, lead sponsor of the bill, Congressman Jim Cooper, Democrat of Tennessee, and co-sponsor Republican Congressman Reid Ribble. And they're here joining me now, and he's in Milwaukee. They're also part of the Fix Congress Now caucus. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning,
Luke.
Hey,
good morning, Luke. Good morning, Jim.
Mr. Cooper, I'll start with you. No budget, no pay. Essentially, that if Congress can't get a budget by October 1st, you guys don't get paid. And you had a great quote. You said, we'll have engaged the most powerful lobbyists on earth to get it done, namely our spouses. They'll get angry if we're not paid. Talk about your bill.
Well, that's right, Luke. The idea is very simple, no work, no pay. And the idea is very powerful because Congress has not been held responsible for its collective behavior. We've really not passed a budget and appropriations bills on time in like 14 years. You just talked about how 15 banks have been downgraded yesterday. America could be downgraded very shortly if we don't get our work done on time. The deadline is October 1st, and yet this is one of the laziest Congresses in American history. We only worked 7 days during the entire month of May. We're barely working more than that during June. We've got no highway bill. Other essential pieces of legislation are simply not being passed, so it's time to take action.
Mr. Ribble, obviously this is a bipartisan measure. Do you think you can see bipartisan ideas in a large-scale budget? Obviously, Democrats like to see a revenue increase.
Well, yeah, I think it can be done. I mean, the House has spoken. I was in Congress. I'm a freshman member. I was in Congress about 110 days when we passed our first budget. My second year, we passed it again, and we passed it on time. And so on the House side, as far as the budget goes, but the Senate hasn't acted. But I think historically, if you look back, almost every time there's an election year, it's not 100% this way, but almost every time there's an election year, the Senate and House doesn't come together with the budget. And Jim spoke a little bit of the appropriations process. We're not even getting our appropriations bills done on time. And so Jim and I and others, both Republicans and Democrats, have decided that we want to fix this. And we're going to start to apply pressure. And coming on your show this morning will help because the American people will begin to speak up if they hear about it.
Realistically speaking, what are some areas of agreement that you guys could come to in this type of bill? I mean, could you have significant entitlement reform? Could you have revenue increases? Or could you have some smaller things that might be beneficial to the citizenry? Now, I'll go to Mr. Cooper.
We really need to have everything on the table. I like the Simpson-Bowles approach, but it's got to be hashed out by Congress. And it's not enough for the House to do its thing and the Senate to do its thing. We've got to come together as a Congress and take responsibility because we live in the greatest nation on earth. We've got to keep it that way. And right now we're dangerously close to not only losing our credit rating, but other forms of national weakness. So it's time for Congress to get its act together. Congress, according to most experts on a bipartisan basis, has really never been this broken. So let's fix it, and let's fix it now. We've got a few weeks left in this session. There are really only about 23 days left, according to the Congressional calendar, before the election. We've got to move fast.
I'll ask you, where do we fix it, though? Where can we agree, both of you? Where can we find something that we can take home and sign into law?
I offered 2 months ago the Simpson-Bowles budget, entitlement reforms, and taxes. It's got to be done both. We only got 38 votes in the House.
Mr. Ribble?
And I think you'll see it here in a few days, maybe. There has been a conference committee working on the highway bill and transportation bill. We've made quite a bit of progress over the last 30 days. I think we might be able to get some things wrapped up. Maybe this, if we need an extension, we'll get it. But I think there's been a lot of progress made on the highway bill. That's been done in a bipartisan fashion, both in the Senate and in the conference committee. And I think you might actually see some things happen. But it does take pressure, and it takes a certain dent of will by members of Congress to say that the American people are more important than these political careers that people have been protecting, and it's time to move some things forward. I know as a freshman member I'm pretty frustrated with the process and the pace, but I also recognize the founders set up a system that requires us to move toward consensus, so that means we have to start by talking with one another, and we have to stop demonizing ideas that the other side has.
I'll pose this question to both of you, and Mr. Ribble, you can go first. I want to hear Mr. Cooper's opinion. How much do you think Grover Norquist's tax pledge has to do with the gridlock we see today in Congress?
I think it's overstated. The fact of the matter is members of Congress are going to move to do what they have to do to get this situation rectified. Obviously, we can't move at all until the Senate passes something as it relates to a budget. And if they would just pass one, we could at least begin to talk about it together and try to find out where the common ground is. But I think the no-tax pledge has been a little bit overstated as far as how much power it has on Capitol Hill.
Mr. Cooper?
Well, Luke, I think the only oath of office that anybody should take is to the Constitution, because we owe our duty to our nation, to our people, to the greatness of this nation. These other pledges really just get in the way. And when 95% of one party has pledged to take a huge thing off the table, that makes negotiations extremely difficult. So let's put our country first. We must do that, because America is slipping, and slipping badly, and Congress is part of that unless we fix Congress. It's really a question of, like a veterinary medicine. How do you get the animal to take the pill? It's got to be strong enough to work. It's got to be tasty enough for them to swallow it. Will Congress swallow this? And right now, the leadership of both parties in both houses is against our proposal. We need a grassroots effort here to build support for this so we can get it passed in this Congress.
Well, I suspect you'll have a difficult time this Congress, but perhaps 2013. Jim Cooper, Reid, Ribble, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank
Luke.
you, Luke.
Up next.